Welcome to Time for Art. This is our cherry cupcake that we're doing with water-soluble markers and glitter. So we're starting with hinging our outline to the rag paper. And what makes it rag paper is it's got, along the paper pulp, some cotton fibers in it, and that's called rag. And so this is this really great cotton mixture fabric, or fabric in your watercolor paper. And that's what's going to make our markers really flow and break and bleed in all the ways we want them to on a painting, on our work of art this time. So I'm transferring it how we usually do. And I'm actually using for pressure the fine tip on the one side of your markers. And the reason I'm doing that is because it's a softer tip and you can't press too hard without really breaking it. And I think that's something everyone knows how to do. And I don't want these lines to be very dark because the watercolor markers can be very faint and we don't want these lines to be too hard to cover up. So I've transferred my piece with the fine tip side, and if you look, it's a very fine line. So this first color we're going to put down is this gray, and we're using the wider side. And if you look, I'm putting in 2 strokes because that's how much pigment I want. And the technique we're going to use is we're going to paint sort of from the middle out. So I'm just applying water sort of to the middle where I want this background color to be. And then we're going to pierce the edge of the ink, as you see me doing there right now. And that's going to bleed to all the areas that have the water already down. And it's not going to bleed to any of the areas where there isn't water already. So I bleed in that area, but I don't want that marker as on the other side, so I'm very faintly putting some water sort of in a very narrow stripe on the other side. So we get kind of a painted edge on the other side. And so I'm drawing out as much pigment as I want. I want it to be pretty faint, but I want it to break in all the right areas. And I'm going to go ahead and hair dry this. I want to get it really dry because we're going to be painting over this. And if you apply your marker on something damp, it's going to pull. And we don't want any pad paper. So I've gone in on the back, I've gone in on the front. I'm using the lightest setting. Everything heavier kind of messes with your paper. And we're in good shape. And the next color we're going to reach for is our kind of beigey color. It's very similar to our gray, but it's warm colors. And we're going to apply that sort of on the underside of these frosting swirls. We don't want to do the edges because we're just going to fill those in. And it's the same technique we used in our background where we paint the water sort of in the middle region. And then we pierce the edge of our ink line and we draw that up and to that empty edge. So we're just going to get a painted edge on the left side. The light's definitely coming from the left side. And we're going to go ahead and draw that down into our cupcake area as well. So I'm kind of flattening it out with my flat brush to make sure it's nice and even. And now I'm going to go ahead and blot it because I don't want any pooling. It's going to give that sort of explosion look. And I'm going to go ahead and dry it on light. We're going to go with our pink marker, kind of the pinkest one. Give it a try. And we're going to outline our cherry and apply a little bit more ink onto the right side. And we're going to do the same technique we've been doing. We just kind of draw that out. Fill it in, get it going. We're going to leave that alone for a minute. This is our chocolate brown. And we're just going to outline that baking liner edge with sort of chevron. And the rest of it, paint kind of the inside with some water, pierce the edge of the ink line, and draw it all into the middle. And the reason we paint the inside is so that when we apply the ink, it doesn't go in both directions, it just goes in one. So if you look, we're doing a pretty good job of just not bleeding into our background. If it does, it's watercolor. That's kind of the serendipity of working with watercolor, but not the goal, so this is the technique we're applying. So now I'm going to smaller brush and just kind of making sure I give some attention to that. I'm blotting the cherry because I don't want any of it to pool. And we're going to give it a gentle dry. So you can back in there and work. I'm going to make this good and dry. So we went in the back. And this is kind of our detail layer for the watercolor markers. We're applying some of that kind of coral red and some chocolate brown on the right side. The cherry and a stem. We're making it a chocolate cupcake, so we're filling in the cake part, the muffin top, if you will. Adding the ridges to the cupcake liner at the bottom. And these should kind of look uneven, because when you bake a cupcake and it spreads, it kind of puts those ridges unevenly. We're just going to take some water and blend our cherry. We're going to paint in the middle of our cherry stem, and it'll kind of bleed out just the way we want it to, but shoot through the middle. Same technique kind of on all of these, where we're just kind of painting in the interim so it sort of blends in. We're kind of hitting the medians of these ridges, and you get this really beautiful watercolor bleed. And it kind of does the rendering for you. You kind of leave it alone. And now I'm just doing some detail work. I'm touching up some of the places I just want to add a little bit more detail to. We give everything a light blot so that we don't get an explosion when we go to dry. We're applying our drying layer. And now it's time for some glitter. So I'm pouring some of our school glue into a dish. And I'm getting out one of our smaller brushes. And right now I'm hitting all the darkest areas, because with glitter you definitely need to use the darkest glitter first, because you don't want it to bleed over time into some of the areas where you want it to be lighter. You don't want little dark glitter specks to hit like your white highlight. So I'm just going through some of the ridges, dropping in my brown glitter. Brown glitter is one of my favorites. You don't always think of glitter to be brown, but why can't it be? Next glitter choice I'm using is our sort of red. The red in your kits is a little bit more of a magenta than it is in the example. So we're just hitting that side, and that stacks up really nicely, creating our shadow side of our cherry. Now it's time for the gold. We're hitting kind of our shadow side with the gold. And we're saving all of our glitter and putting it right into the cup it was in before. And we're putting in the highlight on both our cherry and our frosting swirls. Shake, shake, shake. And that is our markers and glitter watercolor painted cupcake. Sign it. Finishes things up.